We will go right now to the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline. He joins us each and every Wednesday here on Game Night for a Weinberg Wednesday. That's right, Dave Weinberg is back, and he joins me right now here on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. No beach today, but it was still a good day.
Well, you've gotten so many beach days in. I think I think you have enough stored up just in case. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess I was due for a break.
Well, one of the interesting things that happened today, and I didn't expect to have this conversation with you today, so thanks to the Eagles for popping up a random story in my face today. But I saw when the Eagles make a couple roster moves, and to the traditional person, they may say, Dave, Trevon Grimes, Jamie Newman, okay, whatever. But to me, it's not okay, whatever, because it seems to me that this coaching staff, Dave, they're pretty decisive. They're saying, look, we saw these guys for a month, and we're moving in a different direction. And I don't remember, Doug Peterson or Chip Kelly being this, for lack of a better term, impatient with young players. You only had 3 quarterbacks right now on the roster. Now you're down to 2. I mean, this guy wasn't costing you a lot of money, and you just said, you know what, we're moving on. And this seems very different than past coaching staffs.
Yeah, they do seem a little bit more decisive, I guess. But they're, I guess the quarterback, didn't show much in the OTAs. I mean, that's not terribly unusual. I mean, but that just tells me they're going to try and look for someone else. Usually that happens like during the preseason, like somebody will cut somebody, and then they'll pick them up. The Eagles have been known to do that in the past. So I wouldn't read like a whole lot into it, but yeah, it is worth noting that they're down to 2, though. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's just surprising to me. And and I don't hate Jamie Newman. I never met the guy, but it just seems like, his whole story was strange. He's going to transfer to Georgia. Then another quarterback transferred in. Then all of a sudden he opts out. He says it's because of his son. I can't judge him. I don't know the man. But then he doesn't get drafted at all. He had no guaranteed money. He was the only undrafted guy who signed for no guaranteed money with the Eagles.
Wow.
And then it's like, and now he's out of town, and it's just like, wow, like what happened? Like, what happened at OTAs that Nick Cirianni and Shane Steichen told the Eagles front office, yeah, we could do without this guy? It just is just surprising.
Yeah. Maybe he lost in ping pong or something. I don't know. Or rock, paper, scissors, or when one of Nick Sirianni's odd ways of gauging competitiveness, which boggles my mind. But that's an argument for another day, I guess. But yeah, it's I guess he just didn't have it, and they were quick to see it, and thought there was no point in bringing him to training camp if they knew he had no shot of making the team or even the practice spot.
Well, one of the things we do know for sure is that Jeff Stoutland spoke to the media today.
Yeah, that was funny.
Well, first of all, Stoutland's a good time. Anytime you listen to him, it's just
he's a great guy. Yep.
You can tell how much that guy loves football, right? But one of the things that he mentioned is that he confirmed that this is a competition between Dillard and Maia. And he talked about the fact that
I've been trying to say that to everybody, but nobody wanted to see.
Right, and I've been saying how could it not be a competition? But what do we know? We're just a bunch of people.
Right.
But anyway,
sure.
But Stoutland, he was very definitive in saying, look, this is a competition. These are 2 guys who it's my job to put them in a position to be the best version of themselves for this team. And Stoutland sounded extremely invested in this competition. And I loved hearing that from him because we finally got from, for lack of a better term, the horse's mouth that, hey, we're going in the training camp and we don't know who the left tackle is, but may the best man win. I like that mentality.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, Nick Sirianni has been preaching that, every position's up for grabs, which really isn't true. But I've always thought the left tackle was one of them that would be. Jordan Mailata had a decent season last year. Andre Dillard was hurt, obviously, so he didn't get a chance to show much what he could do. But he was the number 1 pick, and you're not just going to give up on the number 1 pick without giving him an opportunity to win that job. And Jordan made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot of work still to be done. And if Andre plays better than him in training camp and in preseason, which I personally suspect that's going to happen, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, and I was impressed with Andre too. He was saying how this kind of lit a fire under him that he's never had before, which is encouraging. That he's taking this seriously. He really wants to win the job. We know obviously he does, but everybody does. But I was kind of impressed with what Jeff said, what Stoutland said, and what Dillard had to say a couple of days ago. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that competition at left tackle.
And you know,
just as long as JP's not involved.
Well, yeah. No offense to Jason Peters, I just never want to see him in the Eagles uniform ever again. I think his time is expired. But
right.
Speaking of
maybe
JP,
when he retires his jersey, he could wear it. But that's about
right.
it.
That's fine. I'm good with that. Just not maybe not jersey and pads. How about I say that? No pads with the jersey.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
But
he hasn't signed with anybody yet, has he?
No, he's still hanging around out there. Which
I guess he's just waiting for some team to come calling. I guess.
Yeah, maybe he's waiting for someone to get injured in a training camp. Or something.
Yeah, that could be. Yep.
But, with that being said, to me, I think the other thing with this tackle competition is these are two very different players because, Maia, his story is famous, never played American football. He's only been playing for a few years, and he was a serviceable left tackle last year. He was not some guy getting blown off the line every snap. And then Dillard, he was an elite pass blocker, a very below average run blocker coming out of college. And
right.
You have one guy who's basically a physical freak in Maia, and then you have Dillard. They call him the dancing bear. So, whoever wins this job, you're getting a very different player at that position, but you're still asking them to do the same thing.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what they're going to be asked to do. No one really knows, what the system's going to be like. But, yeah, I mean, Dillard, he's had 2 years now to put on some bulk, add some weight to him. And, everybody wants to rip on him, and I understand that. But just remember that his most of his disastrous performances.
All right, we have a bit of a technical glitch with Dave. I'm going to have him reset his connection there. Dave Weinberg joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig here hanging out with you. Typically, we talk with Dave each and every Wednesday. And, one thing the left tackle position as well that's interesting is that, when you think about the left tackle situation, Maia and Dillard, I was saying, both of them bring different things to the table. Maia is a guy who he can be, in my opinion, a very physically intimidating player. Whereas Dillard, Dillard's a guy who I think that if he puts on a little more size, he can be that kind of guy. But I don't think it's by his nature that's his skill set. So, he's more of a finesse guy. Maia is more the power guy. So that's why I'm saying, to me, whoever wins this, you're still asking them to play certain roles in this offense. But the way it's going to play out, it's just going to play out a little differently. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that works out with those two guys. We got Dave Weinberg back now. Dave, you got me now?
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. My sound went haywire there.
It's all good. Well, technology is a blessing and a curse. That's how I look at it. So.
There you go.
The other thing that Stoutland said...
I'm better at it than Pete Thompson, I'll tell you that.
I'm going to save that cut now and make sure I send it to Pete later. But speaking of Stoutland, the other thing he said was interesting to me, Dave, was that he talked about Jack Driscoll today and about how impressed he was. He was better than he thought he was going to be, and how he envisions him as potentially maybe even being a starting tackle in this league. So for Stoutland to speak that highly of a guy that got limited time last year tells me that the Eagles kind of have a plan right now for what they want the depth chart to look like on the offensive line, and Driscoll has a definite role on this team this upcoming year.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect him to be maybe the swing tackle to start the year. Lane Johnson is definitely going to be the right tackle, but who knows how that's going to pan out given his injury history. So yeah, I could definitely see a scenario where Jack gets some playing time here, even if they want to just spell one of the left tackle or the right tackle and plug him in there for a series or two here and there. But yeah, the Eagles have always done a very good job, Stoutland specifically, of building depth along that offensive line, having guys play multiple roles so that they're willing to and able to just step right in without missing a beat. Cross training, if you will, I guess is the latest term for it. But yeah, it would be the more available, experienced offensive lineman you have on your roster, the better off you're going to be, and that's the way they would approach it.
Now, if Maia wins this competition, what do you expect to happen to Dillard? Does he stay on the roster? Do you think he gets traded? What do you think happens there?
Well, that's kind of a tough what if, but I don't know that. I mean, if someone were willing to bowl him over with an offer, I would think they would consider trading him. But you don't just give up on first round picks like that. I would still think that he would have a future in the team. They might. I don't know if they want to throw all their eggs in the Jordan Mailata basket, and maybe they would just keep Andre in the event that Mailata struggles, and then you have Andre to come back. Although that's going to be really tough on Andre's psyche. I mean, I don't know how he would deal with the demotion like that, but when you're going to have a guy like lose a battle like that, it's going to be tough to keep him engaged and to keep him on top of things in case that when he does have to go back in, that he's really ready, willing to go. But I would expect them to keep him around if that answers your question.
Dave Weinberg joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, a Weinberg Wednesday, at Dave Weinberg 19 on Twitter. Make sure you check out his extra point columns as well over at 97.3ESPN.com. Dave, big night tomorrow night for the fight world, because in a world where people like Logan Paul are getting a lot of coverage, which disgusts me. I know you and I are in the same boat. First of all, Floyd knocked him out and held him up, okay?
Yeah, absolutely true.
I saw the highlight. I didn't have to pay for it. I saw the highlight. No one could convince me otherwise. But neither here nor there.
Same.
The big thing in the fight game right now is Claressa Shields tomorrow makes her debut in MMA in Atlantic City. And, she made a comment this week. I was on the press call on Monday, Dave, and she was very overt because somebody, and no offense to the person asking the question, but I think some people don't realize how smart she is, because they tried to ask a question, Claressa, how smart Claressa is, because they tried to slip a question by her. Okay. And she said, listen, I'm not James Toney. I'm not coming into this with a couple months of training. She's like, I am 100% serious about this. She went down to New Mexico to work with some of the best people on earth in MMA.
Right.
She's
Holly
working,
Holm, John Jones,
right. John, Greg Jackson, MMA, John Winkle, all those people down there. And her focus coming into this is incredible. And I have to believe a competitor and athlete like her is not just going to take advantage of this opportunity, but that she's going to run with it.
Yes, I think so. I think she has the right attitude, although I don't think this is going to be as easy as she thinks it's going to be. I happened to listen to a YouTube video of Brittany Elkin today, and I think she's going to be taking Claressa into waters that she's never been in before. And her MMA record isn't the most impressive. It's 3-6. But she's lost to some very good people, and there was just something about her attitude that made me think that there's a lot of people out there that think that they chose Elkin just to kind of not roll over, but as an opponent more than a viable competitor. And something tells me that Brittany's going to give her a fight. Claressa, I guess, will emerge victorious. I mean, she's favored to win, but I don't think this is going to be the cakewalk that she seems to think it's going to be.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be a cakewalk. You're right. Brittany, she's fought some tough competition herself. It's not like she's just kind of out there building a record. But that might be a blessing in disguise for Claressa, because it's going to force her to look in the mirror a little bit. And to me, MMA is all about testing yourself. The fight game is about testing yourself and finding out what you're really made of. And I'm so fascinated to see how this works out, because if it goes in any semblance of what Claressa hopes it could be, she could go down as one of the greatest female athletes of all time if she can actually go out there and get a belt in MMA at some point, because let's be realistic, women's MMA as currently constructed has only been around for about roughly 15 years. So,
sure.
The sport is still young, and she has an opportunity to make a statement in the sports world that, only Holly Holm has done.
Right. I mean, yeah, she does. She has that opportunity. And if she continues to progress and to work on the craft, then she certainly could attain those kind of levels, that kind of success. But I don't know. I've seen too many boxers think that they can just stand there and whack and go stand up, and that's going to be enough to make them champions. And as you all know, MMA is so much more than that. It's so much more requires so much more versatility.
Right.
You have to be so well rounded, and I think that I don't know for sure, but I mean, there's a lot of difference between fighting for 2 minutes or 3 minutes and fighting for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And the stamina is definitely going to come into play tomorrow night. I'm sure Claressa has trained. Obviously she has trained to handle this, but until you're actually in that cage and the bell rings and it's just you and the other girl, and she's a I don't know, black, purple, whatever belt you want in jiu-jitsu. I mean, I just she's gonna make Claressa do things that she's never had to do before, and I'm just curious to see how she handles that. If she can handle it, then great. Then maybe she will be able to fulfill that kind of those kind of expectations that everybody has. But until she actually does it, I'm going to withhold my enthusiasm, I guess.
The one other thing I wanted to ask you, Dave, is what are the similarities or differences in your eyes between what Holly Holm was as a boxer and what Claressa was as a boxer? And, why was it that Holly was able to make the transition that she did?
Claressa's the better boxer. I think Holly was probably more versatile. I'm not really sure. Well, that's a tough question. What separated them from? I mean, Claressa was a two-time, Olympic gold medalist as a boxer. She's been around the sport her whole life, so that's what she's used to. That's what she was able to. But have the lack of power kind of gets my attention a little bit. I mean, it seems like the most successful people are allowed. They're able to deliver one-punch knockouts, like you saw Holm did with Ronda Rousey. They was kind of able to really take people apart, and she wasn't. Claressa didn't do that as a fighter. I mean, she was obviously tremendous and won belts in 3 weight classes, but she didn't knock a lot of people out. And I'm curious if she will be able to do that, smaller gloves and all that stuff. Maybe in the MMA, maybe her power will resurface, and if she does, then maybe she will be able to attain what Holly Holm did. But I'm not sure that she'll be able to do that yet.
By the way, people can watch it on television tomorrow night, PFL MMA over on ESPN 2. So if you want to.
By the way, just between you and I was really disappointed in the PFL. I was intending to go to the fight and cover it for 97.3, and they're really stuck on this bubble thing. Even though the standards are relaxed, they're not allowing media in there, which I thought was really disappointing because the more attention they could bring to this, the better off they would be. I think it would be a great for Ocean, for entire Atlantic City, for them to allow some fans in. Now it's just like invited guests. I think they're really missing the boat on this, but hopefully they'll be back in town soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could say this. I talked to the CEO a couple months ago, Peter Murray, and he confirmed they're going to be back in Atlantic City next year. That's the plan.
Oh, that's good.
But I do find it very interesting because you mentioned about the whole select thing. That's what happened with the MAC tournament too in Atlantic City. Now, that was a couple months ago. That's before things are they are now. Things are very different now than they were back in March. But even then, they only allowed select friends and family in terms of attendance in the building. And it was like I didn't fully understand. Like, you're in Atlantic City. Don't you want to take advantage of the attention that you can get from being in Atlantic City? And, it's one of those deals where, you know, I talked about this before. I feel like people look at Atlantic City the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like, they don't appreciate, the location. They don't appreciate the dynamic. They don't appreciate, what that city represents and what it can represent. I think some people, and the PFL, I think, understands it, but I think they're so how do I put it? They're so dedicated to this bubble that they feel like that they have to follow it through, if that makes sense.
I guess. I mean, I agree to that. I agree with that to some extent. I mean, they were in a position when they first came back to town this year, where the bubble made perfect sense. I mean, New Jersey had fought, the control board had fought for months just for the opportunity to bring combative sports back to Atlantic City, and they were resisted by the governor and various officials, and then they finally got the clearance. So I guess I understand erring on the side of caution at that time, but now it just seems like I don't think there'd be anything wrong with allowing, 5,000 fans in there or 3,000 fans. I don't know what the number would be, but clearly more than what they're allowing now.
He's Dave Weinberg at Dave Weinberg19 on Twitter. Check out his extra point columns over at 973ESPN.com. Also, the podcast is Tequila and Touchdowns with Dave Weinberg. He joins us each and every Wednesday for a Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, always appreciate the time and the conversation.
Oh, thanks, Josh. I appreciate it as always. Talk to you next week.